Hey there, little lady. Is this guy bothering you? I'm from out of this world. You want to see my spaceship? No, I ain't no Zaphod Beeblebrox. But I am Fake TV's one and only host of the Easy Reefers and Lost Begotten Fake TV channels. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. And welcome back to the Easy Reefers tiny little fish room. First, some good news. Um, Tifa, the onyx clownfish that was formerly known as Nemo until we tried to make her turn female, I think we're going to just go ahead and call her Nemo some more because I think it's still a boy because it seems to be cowering in fear from Spoticus. So, Spoticus apparently is the female now. Apparently, we have a lesbian gladiator on our hands. And, but anyways, the onyx that I had saved with the single fin is doing just fine. I found him. It's apparently just not interested in pellet food anymore, just hunting copepods. And that's why I just didn't freaking get him on camera. But anyways, as you can see, it's daytime, so the tub light is off at the moment, and so is the lower tank refugium. But anyways, last night I proved one thing that I don't think I've mentioned about myself. Oh, I might have once or twice. I have the tendency to, if given nothing else to do that's productive, design vehicles of various sorts, including an entire new fleet of interchangeable, like repairable during battle, multiple redundancy type naval vessels. One configuration of which can launch, what was it, 12 aircraft at a time? Yeah, that would be pretty spiffy, I suppose. In a pinch, 12 fighters at a time. 4 minutes go by, 12 more. Pretty extensive capability. And they ride more level than any ships ever built. And they're so modular they can basically change engines at 5 knots. We don't even have to slow down that much to swap a freaking motor. But anyways, those belong in the water. I also design vehicles and environmental cleanup systems and anything that seems to need to be designed, basically. Lots of different military stuff that I don't like to talk about it because I don't want to give the Russians any ideas. But last night, I started talking about a spaceship. And my wife just texted me. I need to go ahead and be 5 now, okay? Thanks. Alright, so I'll take a nap so I can cause a time dilation event. After I show y'all what I failed to show y'all last night, which is this. Okay, so main principle of resonance as it is caused by different wave motions projected in different directions. But I didn't show. I showed that and that and that, and I didn't show you something kind of crucial to making it all work. And not to be a little too cliche about Star Trek, but it's called an impulse drive, impulse engine, right? No, impulse thruster. And it's a very simple, energy efficient. Let's see, I first thought of this when I was like fucking 8 years old. My first interpretation of what a Star Trek nacelle was doing on the inside. I just thought it was kind of like a little rail gun encapsulated that uses the momentum of a weight to move the ship forward. If you just do that fast enough, when you trigger it, this moves forward. And you have a counter trigger, whether it's mechanical or electronic, or both in this case. That essentially moves the magnet back, but keeps it in place. So the magnet goes forward, the whole thing goes forward, but the magnet stays in place, thereby moving to the rear and getting activated again. Now, this is something that simple solar panels can be more than capable of charging up and firing at relatively high frequencies. It's going to take a few of them to make it a comfortable ride. Otherwise, you're going to be basically just kind of shifting back and forth in your seat. But this device's primary function is for extra atmospheric maneuvering and to allow this system to actually work. So this is the pulse that initializes at the top, and that's basically how the resonance of the entire system is caused. Simple, inertial-based maneuvering capability. Augmented by the electronic pulses. So the electronic pulses are going to work depending on what kind of ionized particles are surrounding the craft. So upper atmosphere, very effective. Out in space, you're going to be sailing against stellar wind, basically. Now, this machine, I drew a bubble window on it, but that's really silly. This machine is not the type of thing that you're going to have sensors working out of. No sensors are going to work because of the electrostatic interference. And there's not going to be any windows, because to get this thing to leave an atmosphere as opposed to hovering in certain areas, which is like kind of all it can do. It could probably hover over the ocean, hover over areas with high iron content in the soil, hover over other areas of magnetic flux. But until you basically simulate an aurora borealis around this craft, you're not going to get anywhere fast. So what we have here on the back of this page is this thing at the tip. Yes, this is just the tip. And it's designed to be sort of a modular, easily replaceable, easily maintainable thing. And that's what this field theory is meant to remind me of. So it sits up here, and the main initializing pulse, that is the pulse that activates the inertial thrust, begins basically a solid fuel style ignition of elongated argon or borate crystal fuel rods. Those are going to be electrically ignited with a misting of, I'm thinking 100% solution of alcohol, but I might be mistaken on that. And basically cause to form a little cloud that the magnetic pulses are going to take over, and that is going to rapidly push said cloud down the fuselage of the craft, and this focused magnetic beam of ionized particles is going to allow it to create the thrust that I was alluding to. Now, this is all very speculative and theoretical. I obviously don't have anything to test and confirm this. This is all kind of just going on intuition, if you will. But then again, that's how most of my designs and theories work. So, let's see. This is going to need to be extremely insulated. I'm suggesting a iridium honeycomb construction with a ferrous composite heat sink, and then another solid iridium housing, and that's where the liquid fuel will be kept. The solid fuel is going to be basically magazined, and each little tip is going to have a basically a nozzle. And this is going to be just slowly electrified. I don't have any sort of conversion ratios or anything like that. But the idea is this is to increase speed only. And this would require the closing up of all external hatches and windows, the deactivation of all sensor ports, and basically you point and pray and try not to poo yourself. Because if this works, you're going to basically be inside of the vapor trail of the rocket. And the theory behind this, which makes it worth mentioning, whereas the specifics, I don't think it's possible for me to have the specifics right. The main theory behind this is generating the lead magnetic field with this array and dispersing ions into that magnetic field so that as it pulses down the aircraft, it expands and encompasses it. And to accomplish this, basically you need a congruent structure at the leading end of the craft. You're not going to get this type of propulsion in a safe, clean way, but this goes beyond the efficiency of any sort of rocket propulsion system. The harmful effects aren't going to be temperature, they're going to be radiation. So the solar panels can be designed to withstand that. But, you know, like I said, you're not going to be able to see where you're going once this thing starts getting active here. Okay. So what that's going to do is basically create, if I go to here, some streams of ions, one of which is going to encompass the central fuselage. The other two are going to, or the other three are going to disperse at the extremities. So that pattern should be effective. You're going to have an ion trail right there, an ion trail right there, an ion trail right there, going down the center of the fuselage, and then this is going to encompass the wings. And of course, the model that was designed to be aerodynamic, or that I had aerodynamics in mind when I designed it, or sketched it, hardly call it a design. It makes a little more sense as far as the actual dispersion pattern goes. See this little piece up here? It's a model of the whole aircraft. Okay? See the 3 points? And there's the 3 points. And then these are all magnetically pulsing arrays that take this ionized material and shape it while pulling the craft through it. So it's something kind of like creating your own specialized atmosphere for a gripping surface for your craft to create thrust through. So The inertial thrusters are all going to be equipped in the individual sections. The main forward thruster is designed to be operable by hand in case you're in a low power situation, in which you would still be able to use your maneuvering thrusters because they use about a 20th the power of the main one, right? The main one can be manually fired forwards only. So it's designed to manually crank back as opposed to settling all the way at the end. It settles in the middle. During normal power conditions, it is controlled by two different magnets. These can be mechanically or dual redundant if, desired, but these can be one way or the other and probably be just fine. Either way, it's the electricity that fires it and the magnetism that redraws it. Unless you have the spring there, then it's just the magnet that fires it, and then the spring recoils it. So it's a naturally coiled up spring. It gets stretched and so on. Naturally, as they wear out, the use of the alternate pulse magnet or whatever, the recoil magnet, will become a lot more crucial. Now, obviously, this could work on magnets alone, but I think the redundancy of having a spring and having the magnets affixed to a rod could eliminate several different types of malfunctions caused by meteorite damage and things like that. If the housing is breached, the magnet and the assembly will still stay aligned and still be capable of functioning, even if exposed. But yeah, so low power mode, batteries only, or whatever, out of fuel, that kind of thing. You can still maneuver inertially, and this gives you pretty sufficient maneuverability when you have 3 different of these pylons, and each one of them can go in 4 different directions. But then powering this would consume several attempts worth of electricity as far as maneuvering goes. So what this would let you do is, if you're just floating out in space, you crank it back and you let her rip. And that's going to propel you forward. Just basic inertial science. Let's see, you need a separate relay for reverse and high-speed pulsating magnets, which basically means when you go beyond the limits of this spring and you're accelerating faster and faster, it's not going to recoil fast enough without the assistance of a magnet. So you're just going to have a stronger magnetic pulse here, jamming it forward. And as the vehicle moves forward, that's when the magnet reaches the other side and pulses again, and so on. Anyways, but that is sort of the inertial catalyst that creates enough velocity for the resonance pulse system to take over from the ionic saturation. So this one here is based on the EM pulsing concept while using enclosed chambers to allow the ionization pulses to happen, or the ionized pulses to happen. So it'll be having a pulse around the outside if that's deemed necessary once the efficiency of that system is established. So basically what you would have is a series of injectors that basically amount to a plasma injector once the strong magnetic field excites those particles. That EM will be forced basically like railgun ammunition. Okay, picture that. Railgun EM crap. So, similar concept here. With the addition of high maneuverability at low power consumption. So this is relatively conventional. And this is sort of an all-in-wonder fighter jet kind of thing. So it has that capability, the ram thrust capability. That gives it this capability. Ram thrust capability. And, the more you cross these two things, the more forward velocity this will be capable of. But like I said, this is the high maneuverability already in space version. Anyways. If this works, it should allow a scalable effect. Essentially, you could make one of these the size of a skyscraper and it should work exactly the same. And due to the weight all going into propulsion and the increase in efficiency thereof, like I said, if it works, it's pretty far-fetched, I know. If it works, it could basically solve all of our problems as far as space travel goes. So it's not some kind of weird fancy thing that bends space or anything like that. It's just simple relativity, electromagnetism, and Tesla resonance. And I'm getting bored with this, so if Anybody has any questions or comments, now would be the time. I think this is my favorite part because this is the most simple and obviously the one that works. I mean, if you had this out in space, this would maneuver. You could build fucking fighter interceptor drones to fucking attack satellites if you wanted to. Put a bunch of those in orbit. They're basically pyramids made of solar panels. And pretty stealthy, I would say. But anyways, I just wanted to fill in the blanks. Because I wasn't in any danger of forgetting this system myself, but I had to jot it down. But I had forgotten to mention it. So before I filmed the video, I made some nice detailed renderings. You can see all my erasure marks. Wrote them descriptions down on there in case anybody finds that information useful. So this is based on the theory that alcohol and borate will be catalyzable at a very low temperature. That being said, it could get pretty crusty on the outside of this thing after a few burns, because the magnetic field should make the borate stick to it to some extent. So there's going to be basically deionized borate crusting itself to the hull. And the rest of the borate and the rest of the particles should just, break up like atmosphere. I think there's as much wasted energy in this open system as opposed to that system as there is efficiency gained by the pairing of systems. Anyways, so what do you think, Relic Turtle? You think it'll work? Basically, this is phased electromagnetic resonance. Designed to form an external thrust field within its magnetic field as that pulse that I discussed traverses the fuselage of the craft. Now, obviously, if you want this thing to take off from a planet with normal gravity, you're going to need to tilt it on its ass. And that burn is going to happen right at the same time. Going to be started by the same exact electromagnetic impulse that powers the where is it? The EM thruster, the impulse engine. Okay. And that weight is going to go through a central conduit. And we're talking a super dense, heavy fucking thing. It's going to have to weigh basically as much as the craft. Okay. Or about a third as much as the craft at least. And it's going to cause this to go from 1G to negative 0.01 Gs on the first thrust. At which point the ionization pulse begins, providing just enough thrust to it to remain slightly moving forward until the next pulse comes. And basically it's going to be slowly taking off and gradually gaining speed. And whoever's in that chair is going to get fucking sick at first. And then it's going to, as the resonance, as it goes from dun 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 dun, as the resonance catches up, it's going to just kind of barely feel like you're standing on the ocean with a little bit of wave action going. And you're just going to feel the forward accumulation of resonance instead of the individual pulses. So every time the resonance reaches its peak, as far as the waveform that travels down the aircraft, you'll have just a little bit of, probably not even enough to make you seasick, you know? But that, of course, can be compensated for by clever alternating programming of the supplemental forward thrusters and the maneuvering pylons. So basically, pop, 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 pop. So you're going from a 1-cylinder to a 2-cylinder. Right here. I'm almost certain I saw somebody come out with it, and it just reminded me, oh yeah, I designed that when I was a kid. Like, why wouldn't you do that? I was playing around with a toy that was similar, and I thought it could be used in space flight. But anyways, something that's already been conceived of, been developed to a certain extent, I'm pretty sure. But as far as this configuration and the utilization of this system as a key component in a resonance pulse drive, I don't think that's been done yet. So that's what this is for. And this is basically a rotating capacitor set that sort of acts like a cap and rotor for the pulses. And it just seems, I'm not aware of exactly how advanced electronic switches go these days, but to get something to fire really fast with this level of voltage, we're not talking about spark plug voltage, okay? We're talking about high voltage. It seems to me like we're going to need a mechanical rotating mechanism. So you have negative, positive, and absorbance. So the third capacitor on there is basically meant to absorb resonance and feed it back into the system. Okay? It's going to be connected basically to the fuselage alone, as opposed to being connected to one side of the power system. But that residual electromagnetism that's going to be flowing through the fuselage, it's meant to kind of echo it, and that helps amplify the resonance of the whole system. So there's the capacitors in the cutaway version, there's the three-dimensional version. They spin around like so around this guy here, and this is your typical, well, not really your typical, but a copper coil nonetheless. And the pulse generators are designed to sort of sit on the extremities of this, but I don't really have that gone to scale. That's why I had the extremities elongated on the more aesthetic design there. Anyways, it's nice and rainy outside, so I'm gonna go get myself a nice view. I guess I could bring y'all too. Ooh. So, talk about your electromagnetism. Holy crap. The waters be coming down. That feels like a pretty big storm right there. Anyway. That's quite enough of that. For now, anyway. So, I hope you found this little video stimulating. And, I suggest that more people watch Star Trek. Pretty much is it's the best source for information that's helpful. And I don't mean as far as that technology goes, because obviously that technology is far different from anything on Star Trek, other than the cliche name Impulse. But man, as far as something that you might be able to get a Fox News viewer to change from watching, that would maybe get them thinking about whether or not Fox News was good news, Star Trek, I'm telling you. I know a lot of very Republican people in Texas who are serious Trekkies. So, check into it, Democrats. Later. Thanks for watching. Peace.